She hadn't seen him in 10 years, not since their marriage ended in whispers and stares. The world thought she had moved on, living her millionaire life without a second thought. But when he appeared at her doorstep, calm and composed, everything she believed about love, status, and race was about to be tested. One simple gesture would shatter her assumptions and force her to face a truth she had spent a decade running from. What could he possibly do after all this time that would leave her, and everyone watching, completely stunned? It had been 10 years since she last saw him, 10 years since their marriage ended in whispers that no one dared repeat aloud. She had built a life of wealth and comfort, hosting galas, attending charity events, and moving through a world where her status demanded respect. People admired her, envied her, and even feared her influence. But behind the silk dresses and polished smiles, a quiet unease lingered. A memory of a man she thought she knew, a man the world refused to accept. And now, as the city lights glimmered through her mansion's windows, something she hadn't expected in a decade was about to arrive, and nothing would ever feel the same again. The doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected, slicing through the quiet hum of her mansion. She froze, her hand hovering over the crystal vase on the table, heart pounding. It had been years since anyone from her past had dared to intrude on her carefully curated life. When she opened the door, there he was, calm, composed, and impossibly familiar. A man the world had ignored, dismissed, and underestimated, standing with a presence that demanded attention. She felt a twinge of unease, a mixture of old memories and buried guilt. This wasn't just an encounter. It was a reckoning. She remembered the sneers, the subtle slights of her friends and colleagues, and how they had whispered behind his back about his race, his background, and his supposed inadequacy. For her, those 10 years had been a shield, a bubble of status and control. For him, they had been a battlefield of quiet endurance, of doors slammed and opportunities denied, of a world constantly questioning his worth because of the color of his skin. He didn't speak immediately, only extended a hand with a gesture that seemed almost ceremonial and deliberate. Her mind raced. Was this a test, a trap, or a message? Around her, the walls seemed to close in, the golden chandeliers suddenly heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. She wanted to retreat, to insist that life had moved on, that the past should stay buried. But something in his eyes, calm, unyielding, and piercing, made her hesitate. The air between them crackled with tension, each second stretching longer than the last. He finally spoke, but not the words she expected. His tone wasn't bitter, wasn't pleading. It was measured, almost serene. "You remember why we parted," he said, his gaze steady. She swallowed hard, heart hammering, unsure whether to nod or shut the door. But he wasn't finished. He began recounting moments she had tried to forget, moments where the world had been crueler to him than she had realized, where society's invisible barriers had shaped his life and limited his potential. She listened, each sentence like a blow she hadn't seen coming, each word forcing her to confront the biases she had ignored. Her carefully constructed world, her wealth, her status, her influence, suddenly felt fragile and hollow in the face of the injustice he had endured. Then came the gesture. Slow, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. A single movement that changed the entire dynamic, flipping the narrative she had believed for a decade. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it carried the weight of every slight, every dismissal, every whispered doubt that had followed him for years. She felt her control slip, replaced by a raw, unfiltered recognition. Nothing she had built could erase the truth staring her in the face. He stepped closer, the silence thick enough to feel like a physical weight. Every polished surface of her mansion suddenly seemed to reflect not her wealth, but the uncomfortable truths she had spent a decade avoiding. His eyes met hers, steady and unflinching, carrying the history of a lifetime spent being judged, dismissed, and underestimated. Then he did it, a simple, deliberate gesture that seemed almost too small to matter. But in that instant, it spoke louder than any argument or confrontation could. It was a move that revealed the injustice he had endured, the countless doors closed to him, and the subtle and not-so-subtle ways society had tried to keep him in his place. And for her, it shattered the illusions she had built around herself, around what she thought she knew about love, success, and race. Her chest tightened, a mix of shock, guilt, and fear washing over her. All the whispers, the judgments, the casual racism she had ignored, they collided in a single moment. For the first time in years, she saw him not as the man she had left, but as a symbol of the resilience and dignity that the world had tried to deny. She wanted to speak, to explain, to defend herself, but the words stuck in her throat. Around them, the air seemed suspended, the world outside irrelevant. This was more than a reunion. It was a reckoning. Every pretense, every facade she had maintained was exposed. And as he held that gaze, waiting, unwavering, she realized that nothing would ever be the same. Not her, not him. Not the life she had believed was complete. And then came the thought that would haunt her long after this moment. Had she finally understood what she had overlooked all these years? Or was it already too late to make things right? The moment lingered longer than she expected, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on her chest. He stepped back, calm yet commanding, leaving her to face the reality she had avoided for a decade. For the first time, she saw clearly, not just him, but the countless injustices, the subtle prejudices, and the doors society had slammed in his face simply because of the color of his skin. She realized that wealth, status, and influence could never erase the truth, could never protect her from the lessons life demanded she learn. And for him, the world hadn't been kind. But he had survived, thrived, and emerged with a dignity that no one could take away. In that room, in that silent exchange, the balance had shifted, not through anger, not through confrontation, but through resilience, courage, and the undeniable power of being seen for who he truly was. As the door closed behind him, she felt a mix of regret, awe, and awakening. The story wasn't just theirs. It was a reflection of a society that often measures worth unfairly, that allows bias to shape lives, and that too easily forgets the humanity of those it marginalizes. She had been blind, but now she could see, and the question remained. How many others were still waiting for recognition, for justice, for a chance to be truly seen? And in that realization, she knew one thing. Change starts with awareness, and awareness starts with moments like this. How will we respond when the truth stands before us undeniable and unyielding? Will we turn away, or will we finally confront the injustices that have long gone unchallenged?